But it's important for us to talk to you, Professor Chomsky, because we are on a project. It's called Journey into America. I've taken a sabbatical, and I'm traveling with my group of young assistants who've already traveled with me to the Muslim world, as you'll see in this book, and I hope you'll have time to dip into it, considering the urgency of the world situation. We are looking at American identity, American notions of pluralism, civil rights, democracy, the core features of what America means or should mean to a lot of people, but looking at all these features through the lens of the Muslim community and the Muslim experience, and seeing whether they stand up or not, and seeing how then we can move things forward in a way where there'll be better understanding. So in this connection, Professor Chomsky, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions on record so that we can quote you in our book. The first question is American identity itself, what it means to be an American. How would you define American identity?
It's a very striking question, in fact, because this is, of course, a country of immigrants. And the immigrants were originally mostly English, but then German, Scotch-Irish, Swedes, Southeastern Europeans, Eastern Europeans like my parents. It is a melting pot. And the problem of creating an identity was a crucial issue from the very beginning of the settlement. And a lot of mythology was created, as is typical for nations. Nations are myths, so they have founding myths, identity myths, and so on. And if you look back at the original colonists, the ones who came here, let's say, to this area, they were religious fanatics who were waving the holy book, calling themselves the children of Israel, returning to the Holy Land, slaughtering the Amalekites, following the Lord's wishes, the Amalekites being the native population. And a lot of that extended. The others who poured in, many were similar, especially the Scotch-Irish. But they did develop a myth, it was an incredible myth in the 19th century, of Anglo-Saxon origins. We're the true Anglo-Saxons, no matter where we came from. Going back to before the Norman conquest. And very strikingly, if you look over American history, each wave of immigrants at first was very harshly repressed. So in the Boston area, and at one point it was what they called Huns, people from Eastern Europe. It was Irish, it was Jews, it was who were regarded as degenerates, Italians, WAPs and so on. And it goes right to the present, Chinese. Another element that runs through the creation of American identity in this complex system is fear. It's a very frightened country, unusually so by international standards, which is kind of ironic because they have a level of security that nobody's ever dreamed of in world history. But from the very beginning, there's a strong element of fear. You find it it's been studied, you find it in popular literature, the kind of literature for the masses. Now it would be television or movies or something, but for a long time it was magazines or novels. There's the theme that runs through them from the 18th century. The theme is we're about to be destroyed by a horrifying enemy, and at the last minute, a super weapon is discovered, or a great hero arises, and Rambo or something, and somehow saves us, the Terminator, or high school boys hiding in the mountains, defending us from the Russians. This goes right back to the 18th century. A secondary theme underlying it is that the great enemy that's about to destroy us is somebody we're crushing. So in the early years, the great enemy was the Indians, the native population. We're exterminating them, but they're about to exterminate us. Then it was the blacks, the black slaves. There's going to be a slave uprising. All they want to do is rape white women, and so on and so forth. We've got to do something about them. They go on, later in the century, it was the Chinese. You think they're coming in here to start laundries. but in fact they're planning to take over the country and destroy us. And even progressive writers like Jack London were writing novels about how we have to kill everyone in China with bacteriological warfare to stop this nefarious plot before it goes too far. Then comes Hispanics, and now it's Muslims. But the theme runs right through, and very typically it's some group that we're crushing, which is about to destroy us. And the paranoia is very real. You see it with populist
What would you
leaders,
say
like
now, as one of the great American icons and figures, which are the steps we need to be taking as humanists to bring better understanding between mainstream Americans and the Muslim community?
I mean, the only advice is the simple virtues, which everyone knows. Education, organizing, interactions, interfaith groups, others which just try to overcome the racism, the fears, the hostilities, and so on. And again, the fears are real. 9/11 happened, okay? And in a very frightened country, which is always looking for somebody who's out to destroy us, it traumatized people.
I'm gonna tell you a story. I'm gonna tell you about